The moment I saw the stains spreading across the rug, I knew my life was about to split cleanly in two. 20 minutes earlier, this place had been my sanctuary, a quiet, temperature-controlled restoration studio in downtown Boston, where silence mattered more than words and precision meant survival. I spent my days bringing fragile things back from the brink, oil paintings older than my country, cracked varnish, colors dulled by centuries of neglect. I believed damage could be reversed if you were patient enough. Now the room looked like a disaster site. Cheap cardboard boxes were stacked nearly to the ceiling, blocking the emergency exits. Styrofoam packing peanuts covered the floor like poison snow. The air smelled wrong, greasy fast food mixed with a syrupy perfume that made my temples throb. And right in the middle of it all, on a hand-restored $60,000 Persian rug, sat my older sister. Her name is Vanessa. She was cross-legged, eating a meatball sandwich, tomato sauce dripping from the bread straight onto the silk fibers I had spent months repairing stitch by stitch. She didn't even notice. Or worse, she noticed and didn't care. I stood frozen in the doorway, my keys still in my hand, my heart beating so slowly it scared me. I work with fragile things for a living. But as I watched Vanessa lick sauce from her fingers and wipe her hands on her jeans, I realized nothing in that room, including me, was safe. "Oh, relax," she said, mouth full, not even looking up. "Mom said it was fine." I swallowed. "Fine for what?" "For us to use the space," she replied, finally glancing at me with a lazy smile. "I needed a warehouse for my business. You're barely here anyway." Her business. That's what she called it. Vanessa sold wellness supplements online. The kind sold through private messages and fake success stories. She called herself a founder. I called it a pyramid scheme with better lighting. "You moved in?" I asked quietly. She laughed. Actually laughed. "Moved some things in. Same difference." "If you don't like it," she shrugged, taking another bite, "call the police." The sound echoed through the high ceilings. Confident. Untouchable. She thought family was a shield. A word that erased consequences. She was wrong. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't give her the reaction she was waiting for. My job requires a steady hand. One tremor can destroy a masterpiece. And in that moment, my life felt like wet paint, still salvageable, but only if I didn't panic. I looked past her and began cataloging the damage in my head. Blocked exits. Food near archival materials. Unauthorized commercial activity. My mind shifted gears, cold and methodical. This wasn't a family argument anymore. It was a violation. There's a technique psychologists talk about, the gray rock method. You become boring. Flat. Unreactive. You give toxic people nothing to feed on. So that's what I did. I met Vanessa's eyes. Her smirk wavered when she didn't find anger there. Only calm. Only clarity. "Okay," I said. She blinked. "Okay. That's it," I replied. I turned and walked out. I closed the door gently behind me, a soft, final click. I could hear her laughing as I left. Probably texting our mother already. Telling her I'd backed down. That I was weak. She thought I was leaving to cry. I was leaving to prepare. Because some damage isn't meant to be repaired. And 2 weeks earlier, at a family dinner I thought was harmless, this disaster had already been set in motion. That dinner replayed in my head as I stood outside the building, my breath fogging the cold glass doors. 2 weeks earlier, I had driven out to my parents' house in Maplewood, the kind of quiet suburb where nothing ever looked broken from the outside. Sunday dinner. Pot roast. Polite smiles stretched too tight. The usual performance. I had come with good news. Real news. I had just secured a contract with a museum in Edinburgh, a full restoration project, water-damaged 19th century portraits. It was the kind of opportunity restorers wait their entire careers for. International. Prestigious. Life-changing. I told them everything. The travel. The timeline. The investment I needed to open a temporary lab overseas. "I'll rent out the studio," I said, laying the numbers on the table between the mashed potatoes and gravy. "It can bring in around $15,000 a month." Corporate tenants. High security. For a moment, no one spoke. I allowed myself a dangerous thought, that maybe they were proud of me. Then Vanessa smiled. "Oh, perfect," she said, turning to our mother. "That solves my storage problem." I laughed. I honestly thought she was joking. She wasn't. "I can move inventory in next week," Vanessa continued, already planning my future without me. "It'll save me a fortune on warehouse fees. And the address will look amazing on my site." My mother set down her fork. "That's actually a wonderful idea." I felt something tighten in my chest. "No," I said carefully. "It's a business asset. I already have tenants interested." My father's jaw hardened. "Your sister is struggling. She always is," I said before I could stop myself. The room went silent. "Vanessa needs support," my mother said sharply. "You'll be abroad. It's the decent thing to do." There it was. The script I had memorized my whole life. I looked at the numbers again. The future I had built inch by inch. And I saw exactly what they were asking. They wanted me to set myself on fire to keep her warm. "No," I repeated. My father slammed his hand on the table. "You're selfish. Your sister is drowning, and you're worried about money." I left early that night, hands shaking on the steering wheel. I told myself saying no was enough. I forgot something important. To people like my parents, no was just a challenge. This morning, I had arrived at the studio with a building security manager and a potential tenant couple visiting from Zurich. Perfect candidates. Quiet. Wealthy. They appreciated art. I talked about lighting, climate control, precision. Then my key would turn. The override opened the door. The smell hit us first. Stale food. Sweat. That same cheap perfume. Inside, Vanessa's 3 kids sat on the floor, boxing products. 6 to 10 years old. Silent. Exhausted. But what stopped my heart wasn't the child labor. It was the open chemical cabinet behind them. Solvents. Industrial grade. One spill away from catastrophe. I felt something inside me flip. Clean. Absolute. This wasn't family drama anymore. This was danger. When Vanessa finally noticed us, she looked annoyed. Not guilty. "Oh," she said. "You're here. You should have called first." That was when I knew. If I didn't act now, I would lose everything. My work, my freedom, maybe even my life. And she would still be smiling. The elevator ride down felt endless. My phone vibrated nonstop in my pocket. I didn't answer. Because for the first time, I wasn't choosing peace. I was choosing myself. And that choice was about to cost my family everything. The lobby felt unreal, cool, polished, untouched by the chaos upstairs. I stood there with my arms crossed, staring at the marble floor while my phone vibrated like a trapped insect in my pocket. I didn't need to look to know who it was. My mother. My father. Message after message stacking up, each one demanding obedience disguised as concern. "She's just trying to survive. She has children. Don't be dramatic." I had spent my entire life being not dramatic. The security manager beside me cleared his throat. "Do you want me to call someone?" I heard Vanessa's voice in my head, laughing. "If you don't like it, call the police." My thumb hovered over the screen. Then I thought about the open solvent bottles. The kids on the floor. The liability. The way my entire future could go up in flames because I was afraid to be the bad sister. I dialed. 911. "What's your emergency?" "My name is Evelyn Hart," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "I need to report an active trespassing situation at my private property. There are hazardous chemicals on site and unsupervised minors present. I'm concerned for their safety." I didn't say my sister. I didn't say family. I used the language of facts. Of law. Of boundaries. When the officers arrived, I met them at the door with my deed and ID already pulled up on my phone. I answered their questions calmly. Professionally. Upstairs, Vanessa exploded the moment she saw the uniforms. "I live here," she screamed. My mother gave me permission. One officer looked at her. Then at me. "Does your mother own this property?" Vanessa froze.
No.
Then her permission doesn't apply. I watched something break across my sister's face. Confusion first, then panic. She had never encountered a rule she couldn't bend. As they escorted her toward the elevator, sobbing and swearing, the security manager touched my arm. "Miss Hart, where are the French chairs?" My stomach dropped. The corner of the room was empty. 2 antique chairs, 17th century, original velvet, gone. He showed me his tablet. A listing. Posted an hour ago. Antique chairs.
Must sell today.
$500. Seller, Vanessa. My hands went cold. She hadn't just crossed my boundaries. She had stolen from me. "Officer," I said quietly. They turned. "I need to add a charge." Vanessa's head snapped around. Her mascara streaked her cheeks. "I was borrowing them," she cried. "I was going to pay her back." "That's not how theft works," the officer replied, already reaching for the cuffs. The sound of metal closing was final. Heavy. At the station, my parents arrived in a storm of outrage. "How could you do this?" my mother screamed. "She's your sister." I handed my father a document. An invoice.
Cleaning.
Restoration. Hazard disposal. Market value of stolen property. He stared at the total, hands shaking. "You're dead to us," he said. "Good," I replied. "Then you won't ask me for money again." I walked out alone into the night. I thought it was over. I didn't know yet that losing my family was only the beginning of my freedom. And that 6 months later, a quiet cafe thousands of miles away would finally teach me what sanctuary really meant. 6 months later, rain slid down the cafe windows in Notting Hill, soft and steady, like the city itself was breathing with me. I sat alone at a small round table, my hands wrapped around a warm cup of coffee, watching London move at its own unhurried pace. My phone lay face up beside me.
Silent.
That silence used to terrify me. Now it felt earned. After everything that happened, I didn't go back to the studio right away. I hired a specialized cleanup crew, the kind usually called in after hoarding cases or chemical spills. They stripped the carpets, sealed the vents, neutralized every trace of contamination Vanessa had dragged into my life. It cost $5,000. I paid without flinching, because what they removed wasn't just dirt. It was obligation.
Guilt.
The lingering sense that I owed my family access to the parts of me I had worked hardest to protect. The studio rented out 3 weeks later. The same couple who had fled in horror returned after the security codes were changed and everything was documented. They signed a 2-year lease and paid up front. That money opened my London lab ahead of schedule. For the first time, my future didn't feel fragile. I don't speak to my parents anymore. I don't speak to Vanessa.
But I do speak to my Aunt Marion.
She calls occasionally, careful not to push, just to update me like a distant reporter. Vanessa took a plea deal. Probation. A permanent record. Her online brand collapsed the moment her mugshot surfaced. No landlord will rent to her now. She lives in my parents' basement. They drained their retirement savings on her legal fees. Decades of betting on the wrong outcome finally called. Aunt Marion says they still talk about me over dinner. About how ungrateful I am. How I abandoned the family. When she tells me, I feel nothing. I used to think sanctuary was a place, white walls, climate control, locks strong enough to keep the world out. I believed safety was something you could build if you worked hard enough. I was wrong. Sanctuary is a boundary. It's saying no without explanation. It's refusing to destroy yourself so others can stay comfortable. It's understanding that blood is biology, but family is behavior. I take a sip of coffee and watch the rain wash the streets clean. I am alone here, but I am not lonely. I have my work. I have my name.
I have the keys to my life.
And this time I didn't make copies.